Hey guys, welcome to Silicon Valley Girl. In this video, I wanted to talk about constantly brainwashing myself to do something, and I can totally say that mindset is, if not everything, it's a huge part of your success. I'm going to tell you some of the tips and hacks that I've used in the past 13 years. 13 years ago, I started my own company. I was 21 years old. Now I'm 34, and this company still exists. It still works. But it started as a two-person team, me taking calls in a corridor of my university to being a startup in Silicon Valley. And here's the first key takeaway. You have to fall in love with the problem associated with whatever you're doing, because it is really easy to fall for something that's fancy and shiny. Like, hey, I want to build my own startup because everyone who's doing it, who I'm looking at, and we normally see just success cases like, oh, this guy built this and now he's a billionaire. This guy started this, sold it to TikTok, whatever. We tend to see a lot of outliers, but we don't see what happens to 80 or 90% of the people who run a startup. My startup didn't end up getting acquired yet, hopefully. It's not a billion-dollar company, again, yet, but I love every aspect of it. I love the problem that I'm helping people with, and we're helping, my huge team is helping people learn languages, take tests, and get into universities of their dreams as a result of, taking the test and learning. And it's really important to fall in love with a problem. You're going to have students who will give up on your course. You will have students who will fail their tests. You will have teachers who will disappear someday. You will have marketing tools that will be outdated. And these are the problems you have to fall in love with. Like, oh, okay, this teacher quit. I'm learning something. I'm creating a new process to hire a new team member so that the next person I hire is better than anyone I worked with before. And when you have this mindset, oh my God, I love this problem. Oh my God, I'm happy to deal with it. Then it will become something that's going to last longer. Also, something that I wanted to mention, falling in love with problems is something you have to do when you're just starting a business. Later on, if you become a serial entrepreneur, but if you're a serial entrepreneur, most of your time should go to not just interviewing people to hire them, but also to interview people to learn about other niches, how the business functions. I've met this guy who started a hugely successful YouTube channel. His videos are getting hundreds of thousands of views, and it's like a new channel. And I asked him, how did you learn it? And his approach was, he was like, I just started interviewing people who worked for top YouTube channels, as if I was hiring them. He hired some of them, but most of the interviews, he was just learning about the process. How does this work? How do you identify the idea? How do you come up with a video idea? How do you edit? So he kept asking those questions. He learned about the whole process and realized this is something he can do now. And so he started hiring people. But again, he's a serial entrepreneur. He has multiple successful companies, and now his channel is also successful. So this is what I feel is a right mindset. You start with the hard things, but then later on, you just focus on hiring and identifying the ideas that you want to work on. One of the most important skills in work for me is delegating tasks. So I'm very happy that these days, a lot of routine tasks can be automated by Magical. Its no-build automations allow everyone to effortlessly speed through repetitive tasks, saving up to 7 hours every week. You can customize any app, any system by yourself without needing to hire developers. Let's look at autofill or data entry automation. These are tasks where you're moving information from one place on the internet to another place. And these can be any online websites, web apps. They can also be your custom websites that your IT team made specifically for your business purpose. This is especially great for resources that Zapier can't even touch. For example, let's create a table of marketing processes for my team and link Google accounts to it so that each team member can see the changes in the spreadsheet. To get started, I've installed the Magical extension for Google Chrome. I'm going to open a tab with the information I need. Click that green Magical M button to open the side panel. Back on the Automation tab in Magical, I can see an automation called Add to New Spreadsheet. All I need to do is click that button. I will need to click this next one that says Transfer All, and boom, here I go, and I'll have a sheet built out. Magical also allows you to use other features that are useful in your work. For example, I can gather all my LinkedIn contacts into one table and extract their emails. You can use Magical with messengers such as Facebook, Messenger, or WhatsApp. If you manage and update databases like, let's say, a CRM, or maybe a financial system if you're in the finance space, even some companies' web apps that were made specifically for your team, Magical can automate that data for you and save you a ton of time. Not only does it work in popular CRMs like Salesforce and HubSpot, popular ATSs and popular issue tracking tools like Zendesk or Jira, it also works on your team-specific database. Magical is so simple to start using that all your colleagues can start automating tasks they're doing manually today. Make your work easier with Magical. Follow the link in the description to start automating your daily tasks now. Let's move on to the next tip of brainwashing yourself to be successful. And the next thing you should be able to do is continue pushing even if no one believes in you. And there are so many personal stories connected with that. When we started our first fundraising process back in Russia, almost everyone told us no and told us this idea is not really a great business idea. The thing is, now I realize they might have been right when it comes to a VC-backed company. But what I also realized is that building this business has formed me as an entrepreneur, and I wouldn't change it for anything. And maybe some people are right when they tell you like, hey, this is not going to work. But if you genuinely keep pushing and believe in the idea, you're going to modify the idea in a way that it works. So whenever you hear some feedback, like if it's a VC telling you that your company doesn't have a huge addressable market, think about like, what's your goal? Are you willing to build $1 billion company, or you're just willing to build a business that's gonna satisfy your urge to help people study abroad? Like that was my case. And when people told me this is not really a VC market, etc., I was like, yes, but I really like helping people. So I kept building it and we're still working on it. But there's also another company I think it's called Apply Board from Canada. They're in the same market of admissions, but they came from a different perspective. They try to automate the admissions process, and they're actually a successful VC-backed company. So sometimes instead of just pushing boldly and pursuing your idea, think about other angles. Maybe there is another angle on your market that could be $1 billion company if that's your goal. Sometimes it's not your goal and it's totally fine. Now, my next tip is to be able to actively talk about your business and go to meetings and meet people, because the only way we were able to get into 500 and we were able to get an interview at YC just because we're constantly talking to other founders. And of course, there should be a healthy work-life balance. There should be a healthy work/network balance, and the networking part grows with you. So when we just started, 100% of my time was dedicated to work. When we decided that we're not going to just build an agency, we're going to build a startup, we started networking with developers, and that was like 10% of our time. Then we decided to start fundraising, and then networking is suddenly 20% of our time. And then now we're thinking of, maybe we can get this company acquired, or maybe we can think about other business lines. And suddenly my networking is like 40% of my time. And when I talk to other entrepreneurs, they say like, yeah, the older you become, the more experienced entrepreneur you become, networking might be like 60 to 70% of your time. Because as we just talked about, like hiring, if you want to hire the best people, you have to know who the best people are. How do you know who the best people are? By talking to people, by meeting them, by asking them what made them successful. So basically, the further along you are in your journey, the more time you spend networking, talking about your business, hiring people, but don't forget to work. So again, in my case, I think my networking is like 40 to 50% now, but it's a very important part of what I do right now. Was it necessary for me to dedicate 60% of my time to networking 13 years ago when we just started a business? Of course not. That could have been detrimental for a business if I just networked without actually building and helping our customers. Now, another tip, be open to new opportunities, because sometimes these new opportunities, these new business lines come from you being open to them. And there are so many different amazing stories. We were able to get into 500 because one day in 2015, I got invited to yet another meeting with an American entrepreneur, and I was so tired of just meeting people, and we were in the stage of fundraising. So it's like 20% of our time, 30% of our time is networking. Most of our networking results in hearing a no from an investor. So every meetup I was going to, I was already skeptical, but I still went. And that one meeting where we met a guy called John Ramey, who introduced us to 500, that changed the whole trajectory of our startup. It only happened because I was open to these new meetings and I said yes. Have you heard about the Flickr Slack story? So the guy worked on video games. While he was working, he co-founded Flickr, but he still kept developing video games. And while developing video games, they needed a communication tool to work with a team, and this is how they came up with Slack. So he was open to exploring new ideas. And what's funny is I've heard so many stories when people work on something, and while they're working on something that doesn't have a huge potential, they notice a problem in a process that a lot of other people experience, and they fix this problem not just for their team, but for a lot of other teams. And this is how they end up finding this billion-dollar idea. So coming back to the thought from my previous videos, always be starting something, always be launching something. Because even if you're working on something that doesn't have a billion-dollar potential, you might discover something else in the process. And this also leads me to another takeaway, being flexible and being able to give up on your idea if it's not working for you. Sometimes you give yourself a certain timeline. Sometimes you just feel that something is dying and you no longer want it. And the faster you will move on from one idea to another, the faster you develop as an entrepreneur. And it's harder to me to give you any examples from my own life because I'm still working on a business idea I founded 13 years ago. But I'm happy that in 2019, I was able to kind of shift my focus to my creator career as well, because this is something I love doing, but I realized that I'm not the best COO for my company, but I could be a great voice online. And giving up on some of my tasks in LinguaTrip and switching my attention first to my family because we had a first daughter in 2018, but also to building a creator career, I think it was such a right move. So if you feel that there is a process that doesn't make you happy, then find something that makes you happy and focus on that and try to delegate the rest. Another thought that really helps me grow as an entrepreneur and grow as a creator, the thought that if I don't enjoy something, there is a 100% chance there is a person who really enjoys doing it. And my goal is just to find that person. If I really want to continue with something, like finding an editor if you don't like to edit, finding a COO for your company if you don't like to manage people, finding a hiring agency if you don't want to hire and scout the best talent by yourself. Although a lot of great founders will argue with me on that because especially with C-level executives, you need to be able to figure out who you need by yourself. Realizing that there are people who can help you and they will be happy to help you just makes life so much easier as an entrepreneur. And I wanted to wrap up with the exercise that I want you to do tonight and then share your results. So the exercise is, before you go to bed, ask yourself, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? I'm pretty sure you might answer like, oh, I'm going to travel or like relax in a 5-star hotel. Okay, that means like you have 3 or 4 months, depending on how stressed you are right now. But later on, you would want to do something. What would it be? And I did this exercise a couple months ago, actually. We received an acquisition offer for a company and it didn't work out. But anyways, when we received it, I was like, okay, if we sell the company right now and have this money, not all the money in the world, but have some cash, and I have a lot of free time, what would I do? Like, what would it be? And the answer came straight to me. Like, I want to do my PhD. So I asked myself, okay, great. You want to do your PhD? Why don't you do it now? What's the reason? What's keeping you back? Anyways, it's really important to be flexible and to constantly ask yourself, what makes me happy? Instead of comparing yourself to others. And like, if you're in this mindset of, but if I stop, this competitor is going to take over, this person's going to leave, whatever. Stop comparing yourself to other people. You need to know what makes you happy. You need to know what makes your company different. And if you're happy as an entrepreneur, if you know where you're going, your company is going to be successful. Instead of constantly looking at others, focus on yourself, because what other people are chasing will make you unhappy. As a result, unsuccessful. Thank you guys so much for watching this video up to the very end. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do not forget to subscribe to Silicon Valley Girl, and I'll see you soon on this channel. Bye.